Starfield. Bethesda Game Studios' next big game after pumping out hits like Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76.
It allows us to have 16 times the detail. 16 times the detail.
So with all these great games under the BGS belt, it would be completely understandable if expectations were extremely high, right? This is supposed to be the space game with the Bethesda blueprint and charm. Skyrim in space, if you will. The biggest question is though, does it live up to the hype? Well, here's the thing. It's kind of a hard question to answer. It's gonna depend on how you're approaching the game. Are you going in there looking for Skyrim and Fallout but reskinned with a space theme? Complete with the Bethesda jank and awkward NPCs? Then that's exactly what you're gonna get. But are you approaching it thinking, wow, the first new IP from BGS in 25 years. With all that experience under their belt, all these games they've worked up on until this point, all these other games they can draw inspiration from, like Outer Worlds, Baldur's Gate 3, No Man's Sky. I can't wait to see what new ideas they implement or improve upon. Well, then you're most likely going to end up like me, sorely disappointed. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? I absolutely adore Bethesda Game Studios. Oblivion was one of my favorite games of all time. I loved everything from the quests, the characters, the charm. Fallout 3 had me in love with its soundtrack, its characters, its world, its theme, everything about it. And Skyrim. When Skyrim came out, I felt like that game was ahead of its time. Each game that came out from Bethesda Game Studios felt like they improved upon their previous entry. Except, Fallout 76.
16 times the detail.
But with Starfield, it feels like Bethesda became complacent. Like I said earlier, I felt like when Skyrim came out, it was ahead of its time. It had an expansive open world. You can climb any mountain, find things to do in every direction you walk, and feel a sense of wonder and exploration. Starfield, on the other hand, it felt like the game should have come out 10 years ago. Unfortunately, Starfield feels outdated. And let me explain. You know how I said earlier that Starfield is basically Skyrim or Fallout in space? Well, that's basically what it is. That's basically all that it is. The Bethesda jank, the awkward NPCs, the systems, the structure, it's basically all here. And that would have been fine if this game came out years ago. But in 2023, in an age where we have Baldur's Gate 3 and the state of No Man's Sky as it is today, I kind of find it hard to let go. The thing is, it feels like Bethesda is refusing to innovate or to give us something notably new. Like, take a look at NPCs. In previous Bethesda titles, they've always acted a little bit awkward or kind of strange, right?
Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law on my watch!
In Starfield, they're still the same old, awkward, flawed NPCs, complete with the weird faces and the janky movement. You would think that after all this time, Bethesda would make them feel, I don't know, more lively? Take a look at Baldur's Gate 3, okay? The NPCs, they all felt alive, like they had personality and character.
Why do you insist on exhuming the past? I was a slave. A vampire spawn.
The NPCs in Starfield, they just all feel so plain.
But gentlemen, can we please focus?
And as much as it pains me to say, the companions aren't all that interesting here. I was never really attached to Sarah or Andreja like I was with Piper from Fallout 4, or even Fox from Fallout 3.
My friend! I see I found you at last!
I also can't help but feel like it was a missed opportunity to do something more interesting with the companions. And while I can appreciate Bethesda adding stuff like perks for each of the companions here, I felt like they could have added something more combat related. Let me use the Outer Worlds as an example. On top of the stat bonuses that the companions can give you, they also had special abilities that you could activate in combat. Parvati could slam her sledgehammer down and create a massive electrical field. And Max, on command, could just spray his shotgun, blasting dudes.
Here's a little trick I learned in prison.
Where is that creativity here in Starfield? And honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the only companion that I actually liked was the adoring fan.
Oh, I'm not that interesting. I like coffee, I like tea, and I like worshipping the ground you walk on.
Also, something I noticed, what happened to NPC schedules? In Oblivion, NPCs would actually close up shop and go to sleep and wake up when it was actually time to open the store back up again. A lot of the NPCs in Starfield stay in the same place 24/7. Just look at Donna here. She's here at night, she's here during the day, and what for?
I can't complain. My boss told me yesterday that I'm one of the best janitors she's ever hired. Feels great to be appreciated.
And why is it that when I shoot my gun in a populated town, nobody reacts? Do they think I'm a joke? In Skyrim, if I shouted in a city, the guards would literally tell me to knock that shit off.
Stop. That shouting is making people nervous. Good. Glad we straightened that out.
Okay, so let me talk about combat a little bit more. I will say one major improvement in Starfield is the gunplay. It feels way smoother than Fallout 4, and I commend Bethesda for that. But if you look deeper, you'll see there's a lot of missing details. Okay, I might start sounding really nitpicky here, but please bear with me, okay? In Fallout, you had something called VATS, where you could slow down time, select a body part, and shoot an enemy and debilitate them in many different ways. It was fucking sick. I could use VATS, aim at a robot's combat inhibitor, shoot it, and then it could go into a frenzy and shoot everything around it. It was creative.
Stand clear.
But that's missing here in Starfield. You don't have VATS or anything like that. And sure, you could say something like that exists in ship combat, but in regular gunplay, like moment-to-moment gunplay, you don't have anything like that. It's just point and shoot. I mean, again, using the Outer Worlds as an example, they had something similar to VATS in the form of TTD. You could slow down time, aim at a body part, and if you shot it, they'd be crippled accordingly. Also, another detail in Fallout was dismemberment. You could shoot and dismember enemies. In Starfield, there's not really anything like that. Like, you could shoot and hopefully blow up a jetpack, but that's about it. Also, what's up with robots having the same physics as the human enemies in this game? When you shot a robot in Fallout, they had a chance to blow up in wires and electricity. In Starfield, when you eliminate a robot, they kind of just go limp in the same way that human enemies do. It's the little things that Bethesda has taken out that really puzzle me. You know, like, enemies don't start limping when you shoot them in the leg anymore. Robots don't blow up, at least I haven't seen it. Now, granted, they did add verticality here in the form of jetpacks. But guess what? You know that jetpack you're wearing right now? Yeah, the one on your back? Well, fuck you, you can't even use it unless you put a skill point in the jetpack perk. And what's crazy is that you can't do a lot of things if you don't spend a skill point first. Remember how I mentioned that ship battles had VATS? Well, you can't actually use it unless you spend a skill point on targeting systems. What about sneaking? Yeah, you don't even get a stealth meter unless you put a point in the stealth skill first. Oh, sweet! My ship can have 5 companions? Wait, what? You have reached the maximum number of crews. Wait, ship can... What?! Okay, what about pickpocketing? Nope, you need to spend a skill point in theft. Okay, can I at least put an outpost on this planet? It has good resources. And of course I can. I need planetary habitation first. There are so many systems that are just locked behind perks. And while I do like the idea of getting a perk and having to do objectives to get to the next tier of that perk, I can't help but feel like I'm losing out on a lot of potential progression half the time. The reason being, once you complete the requirements to level up a certain perk, you don't actually get to the next tier unless you spend a skill point to unlock that tier. So I could have pistol certification ready to level up, and if I get more kills with pistols, it just doesn't level up until I spend a skill point. But what if I need that skill point for another skill that I want to use? It just doesn't feel good. Okay, so before I have a stroke talking about perks, let's go back to how Starfield feels outdated. And mainly with its exploration, or should I say lack thereof. It's kind of a weird thing to think about because while yes, Starfield has 1,000 planets, yes, you can go to all of them, it ends up just not being immersive. Okay, I'm gonna give you a very hot take that you might hate me for. Everything Starfield tries to do space exploration wise, No Man's Sky does better. And the thing is, No Man's Sky came out in 2016. And at the time, even though there was not much to do in the game itself, it still felt enormous because of the fact that you could just go into your ship, exit a planet, go into another planet, all seamlessly without any kind of loading screen. Like I said, the seamlessness of space travel in No Man's Sky made it feel like it was new, like it was grand, and especially back in the day, it all felt like a technological marvel. But with Starfield, it lacks that kind of exploration. And let me show you what I mean. So this is how space travel works in Starfield, okay? First, you open up your star map, then you choose a star system that you want to jump to. After that, you choose the planet, and then you're met with a loading screen. After the loading screen, you pop up in front of the planet. Sometimes before you land, you have to go through a scan. And then after the scan is over, you open up your scanner, and then you choose the destination that you actually want to land on. And then it's a loading screen. And then a cutscene where you finally land. And then when you want to get out of your ship, it's another loading screen. And keep in mind that this footage is at ×2 speed. So you see what I mean about immersion, right? I feel like with all these menus and these loading screens and cutscenes, I'm constantly taken out of the game. I get that it could be argued as convenience or trimming the fat, but why not give us the option to also space travel and fast travel? You know, for those of us that want to be immersed, why not give us that option? Now, I don't know a lot about game development, and I don't know how big of a task it would have been if they implemented something like this. But if it was too much, just tell us that you can't. Don't tell us that it's not important to the player. And speaking of travel, what the fuck is up with the city maps in this game? Like seriously, what is this? Did you guys even try? Like compare this to Skyrim's map or even Oblivion's. Ugh, goodness. Now, landing on an unknown planet and traveling its landscape could be cool at first, but with most of the planets that you land on, they're all pretty barren. Like you'll get some outposts, maybe some nature formations, but a lot of the things are few and far between. And occasionally you might have an enemy ship that'll land and drop off some enemies, but that's about it. And it could also get kind of tedious because there's no other form of land travel besides your jetpack. At least Skyrim had horses. And the thing with the jetpack is it hardly even boosts you forward, it just kind of boosts you up. Why couldn't they be bothered to add land vehicles? Let's ask Todd Howard.
Todd, I want to go to another one of the audience questions, and it's very specific, but so many people asked it. Why are there no vehicles on planets? Space is one thing, but what about terra firma?
It's a great question, actually. It's something we consider. You know, we're going to do outer space, we're going to do planets. Once you do vehicles, it does change the gameplay. So by focusing, once you land in your ship, that you're on foot, it lets us really, for the players, make it an experience where we know how fast they're seeing things. In one sense, you do have a vehicle, which is you obviously have your spaceship, you can go around in space, but then on the surface, you do have a jetpack, which you can upgrade, which is super fun, new experience for us. And obviously, planets have different levels of gravity, which make that unique for many planets.
I mean, okay, I guess. Space exploration is an illusion. Somewhere in the middle of all these cutscenes and menus, you do have a chance of a random encounter, like having space pirates just straight up attack you, or having unknown ships try to communicate with you.
Attention vessel, you have entered restricted space. Please respond.
But stuff like that doesn't play out like in previous Bethesda titles. In Skyrim, exploration was done by the player, We weren't taken to the destination. All these random encounters felt organic. And they felt organic because we, the player, came across these encounters. It didn't just spawn when we spawned into the instance. Honestly, there's no point in exploration because there hardly is any. Okay, let me start talking about quests for a second. For the way quests work, you're not really given many options on how to complete them. You either shoot everybody, pass a persuasion check to skip everything, or do the objective the way it wants you to complete it. There's no room for experimentation here. Again, look at a game like Baldur's Gate 3. It literally has so many different ways you can go about a certain situation. But in Starfield, it feels a lot more linear here.
We will need to deal with the local Crimson Fleet captain. A recent scan indicates an abandoned facility on the nearby moon of Crete.
Also, the first few hours of Starfield feel painfully slow. The main story doesn't even pick up until you're about halfway through the entire main campaign. And in my opinion, the characters are never really all that interesting or engaging. But when the story does pick up, oh boy, it picks up. I would say from a narrative standpoint, this is probably one of Bethesda's best, but only in the latter half. And it's been said that it takes about 12 hours to start enjoying the game, but why? People shouldn't have to play 12 hours of a game to start actually enjoying it. You should get hooked from the start. Skyrim had me hooked from the very beginning. Oblivion, even Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. All the systems were there from the very beginning. I didn't have to unlock VATS. I didn't need to spend a skill point to unlock a stealth meter in Skyrim. All the systems were already there for me to play around with. Okay, so I'm gonna start talking about some very minor spoilers in Starfield. It was shown in the trailer, but if you would rather skip ahead, then you can do so and go to this timestamp. Okay, let's go. Okay, so in Skyrim, you did have to go through the story to unlock shouts. You know, like Fusro Da. And in Starfield, there is something similar in the form of star powers that pretty much act the same way as shouts do. But oh my god, unlocking star powers in Starfield is one of the most boring things I've ever had to do in a video game. Skyrim had you going through dungeons or climbing on top of a mountain and fighting a dragon just to get some of these shouts, right? In Starfield, if you want to get a star power, the process is the exact same for every single power that you get. You go and you talk to a person. He then tells you what planet that this power could be in. Once you land, you have to look for the structure that the power could be inside of. Then you find the entrance. Afterwards, you go inside and you're met with a 0G minigame where you have to pass through some star clusters. And it could be anywhere between like 5 and, I don't know, 10. And once you've gathered enough star clusters, then that spinning thing in the middle, you go through this little teleportation thing, and then you come out, and that's it. You do this for every single star power that is available. Every single one of them. And there's like 20 of them. It is so tedious to get these powers. They couldn't have added any variety into obtaining them. Okay, let me go over outpost and crafting. And while I can appreciate that it's here, this is another instance where I'll say that No Man's Sky does it better. Also, I may be in the minority here, but what in God's name is up with the controls for outpost building? Why is right mouse button and left mouse button used to rotate objects, while the mouse wheel is item selection and moving around the mouse is zoom? It just doesn't make sense to me. Who was responsible for designing this? They've also taken out individual building pieces like floors or walls from Fallout 4, and they replaced all that with prefab buildings that you could just place down that have all the walls and floors and doors there already. And while I do like how they added resource extractors and such, I sorely miss being able to scrap items like you could in Fallout 4. You heard that right. They kept the crafting system, but they took out the ability to scrap junk altogether. So now you have a bunch of junk lying around in the game that hardly serve any purpose. Need adhesive? Let me just pick up this vacuum tape and scrap it like I could in Fallout 4. Oh wait, I can't. Now, in order to be able to craft weapon mods and suit mods, you have to mine for resource or scavenge for specific items that are available as a resource. Not only that, but some mods and craftables require you to mine a resource just to make a component, and then you can craft the mod. But oh, I forgot to mention, some mods require you to have to research them first. But guess what? You need to unlock the ability to research that tier of weapon mod by spending a skill point. Just let me have fun, Bethesda, please. Oh, also, if you want to build multiple outposts, I hope you know where you're building them, because there's no way to actually easily track where your outposts are built. You have to check the star map and look for the little symbol that it could be in. It's fucking stupid. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little heated here, but Bethesda, for some reason, also took out the ability to individually track what resource you need. Now, if you track for resources, it tracks every component you need in a mod instead of the only one you need. I don't know why. Ship battles are pretty cool though, especially once you unlock targeting systems. Dogfights are really intense. Being able to aim at an enemy ship's engines, disable them, and then dock the ship and slaughter everybody inside and take the ship as your own, it never gets old. But in order to pilot certain ships, you need a skill point in piloting because of course you do. Shipbuilding is pretty cool though, but like with all things in Starfield, it could use some improvement. Sometimes the controls and camera work against you, but it's not as bad as outpost building. Because unlike outpost building, every part here can snap into place. The problem with shipbuilding though, is that some parts don't even have any descriptions. Sure, you can get by with some common sense, like seeing that the infirmary will provide a med bay, or that the armory will provide you some weapon displays or something. But what the fuck does a control station do? Or even the computer core? Some ship parts can increase your crew size, allowing you to assign more members into your ship. But like I said earlier, even if you have 5 spaces in your ship, you can only fill like 3 of those spaces unless you spend a skill point to be able to fill more. And plenty of these skill point issues wouldn't be too bad if leveling up was quicker, or if it at least gave you 2 skill points per level, but you only get 1. And at least for me, leveling up is painfully slow. I beat the campaign in about 20-21 hours, and in between, I did maybe a handful of side quests and resource gathering or exploration. And I finished it at like level 27, and this is playing the game normally. I didn't do any get XP fast exploits or anything like that. I did missions, I scoured outposts, created some weapon mods, and cleared out enemy areas. That's it. There are about 80 perks with like 4 tiers each, and if my math is correct, that's like 320 total skill points you need to get and level up everything. That's a lot of time just to level up. That's a lot of hours of playing Starfield. Now, I know what you're thinking. All these issues that you're talking about can just be fixed with mods. But let me argue the fact that why does it need to be fixed with mods? Why does Bethesda depend so heavily on the modding community to fix their game or to make it better? A good game should be fun from the get-go. I shouldn't have to mod Starfield in order to fix it. I shouldn't feel the need to have mods give me a fun experience. It should be fun right out of the box. Playing Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout, I didn't feel the need to mod those games. Sure, modding those games gave me a more enhanced experience, but I still had fun playing the vanilla version of those games. The vanilla version of Starfield, it's just okay. Starfield is the okayest game I've ever played, and honestly, the worst modern BGS title that I've played. But I'm not saying that it's bad, not at all. I just think it's painfully mid. I still enjoy it, but was I wrong to expect a No Man's Skyrim? Is it wrong to expect Bethesda to at least introduce new mechanics to their games other than the ability to mantle a ledge? Maybe I should have just known my expectations. People wanted Space Skyrim, and that's perfectly fine. This delivers, but it doesn't deliver any more, and arguably, it delivers a little less. But I don't know, maybe that's my fault for expecting Bethesda to push themselves. People still love Bethesda game studios, and so do I. Starfield's not gonna change that, but maybe I'm just being cynical, I don't know. But all I can say is that Bethesda needs to step it up. Stop being complacent. Push those boundaries like you used to with Morrowind and Oblivion. I just hope Elder Scrolls 6 turns out to be better than Starfield.